Archibald Alexander, 1772 to 1851. In the spring of 1791, 19-year-old Archibald Alexander and his mentor, Dr. William Graham, were riding their horses to a presbytery meeting in Augusta County near Lexington, Virginia. Alexander was on the way to his preaching licensure examination. As his instructor and mentor, Graham sensed Alexander's call to the ministry and was encouraging him to pursue licensure. Alexander, however, had a different goal in mind. He hoped to persuade the presbytery not to license him too soon. As their horses crossed a creek swollen with snow melt, Alexander said to Graham, "Maybe the presbytery will decide that it is best to wait a while before licensing me." "Perhaps," Graham said, "or they might decide you are ready and license you now." Alexander's stomach sank at the thought of himself, short and boyish in appearance as he was, being licensed to preach. If they just waited a few more years, Alexander thought, at least I might be taller or healthier or better prepared. Dr. Graham, however, saw in the young man what many in Alexander's family, church, and community had already seen. Under Graham's guidance, Alexander excelled in the study of theology, the humanities, psychology, and the sciences. More importantly, Alexander had been brought to assurance of his salvation in Jesus Christ out of a lengthy time of spiritual searching and struggle. Graham had witnessed all of this as Alexander's instructor and mentor since his childhood. "Don't be anxious, Alexander," Graham said, reading his pupil's inner turmoil. "Do your best and leave the outcome to the Lord." Having Alexander even apply for licensure was an accomplishment. Dr. Graham persuaded him that being licensed would enable him to join Graham on an itinerant preaching tour of the area and that the travel could benefit his health. Alexander arrived at the presbytery and began his exams. Each part worried him: Latin, scripture exegesis, and lecture writing. But his training under Dr. Graham paid off, and he passed most of the tests in his first round of exams. The lecture he delivered was on the difference between a living and a dead faith. In his second round of exams, focusing on theology and sermon delivery, he greatly disliked the text that the presbytery gave him to preach because it brought him face to face with his own insecurities and excuses to postpone God's call. "But the Lord said unto me, Say not, I am a child, for thou shalt go to all that I shall send thee, and whatsoever I command thee, thou shalt speak." Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 7. The presbytery chose this text on purpose to teach Alexander how to put his own insecurities aside when preaching the word. And that is just what Alexander did. After he delivered the sermon, the presbytery was impressed with his maturity and his focus on the passage's teaching without the slightest personal reference. "Congratulations, Alexander," Graham said after hearing the presbytery's feedback on the sermon. "The presbytery spoke highly of your sermon. It was a carefully prepared message on a pivotal topic, the call to the ministry." Graham could not help smiling. Having passed his exams, Alexander was licensed. No one at that time knew that Alexander's licensure would change the history of the Presbyterian Church in important ways.